Hello there, this is Dr. Eve Ruiz, retired psychiatrist and now an empowerment mentor. This is on my YouTube channel, SpiritSpeaks MD, and my Facebook page is simply Eve Spirit Speaks. I am presenting the second episode today of my series on energetically engaging with narcissists. In our first episode, we had outlined some of the basic characteristics you might find in the narcissist you love or work with or deal with in social circles. We left off with the promise that today we would show some possible subcategories for people who are narcissistic. When I was in medical school, we talked about the overt and the covert narcissist. Someone who would be really into himself and make sure that everyone knew it, of course, would be the overt, and covert would be the one who kind of hemmed and hawed and fished for compliments, kind of like stubbing his own little toe and trying to act like, oh, I'm not really that great, but that would be a way to get people to brag about him or to praise him. Remember, the narcissist relies a lot on others around him to say how wonderful he is and to make him feel better. I am using consistently at the moment the personal pronoun he or him. Are narcissists only men? Of course not. Men would have this trait and possibly the disorder more commonly. Narcissism shows up more in young adulthood, late teens, young adulthood. We will go into these categories. The first one is the grandiose type. This is what I've called the overt type from Your. The grandiose type is actually like diving right into the deep end of the pool. We're going to open a Pandora's box now. Those who are more severe in their expression of narcissism this way might encompass the malignant narcissist. This is where I'm opening the Pandora's box. A malignant narcissist is one who has another personality disorder involved. This is the antisocial personality disorder. I'm going to run quickly through the list of things that you may find in someone you know with antisocial personality disorder. Someone you know does have it? All right, keep them in mind and let's go through these. Antisocial personality disorder signs and symptoms may include utter disregard for what's right versus what's wrong, persistent deceiving of others to exploit them, being callous, cynical, and disrespectful of others, not just on occasion. Also, using charm or their wit to manipulate others for personal gain or personal pleasure. Another one, arrogance, a sense of superiority and being extremely opinionated. Next, recurring problems with the law, including criminal behavior. Now remember, I said may include. So depends on the degree, depends on the choices the person makes. We're almost halfway through. Repeatedly violating the rights of others through intimidation. We've already mentioned dishonesty. So not just to exploit others, but to repeatedly violate the rights. They will use dishonesty. Next, impulsivity or failure to plan ahead. Next, hostility, significant irritability, agitation, aggression, or violence. Next, lack of empathy for others and lack of remorse about harming others. Next, unnecessary risk-taking or other dangerous behavior with no regard for the safety for self or others. Next, poor, or abusive relationships. What about this? Failure to consider the negative consequences of behavior or to learn from them. Lastly, being consistently irresponsible and repeatedly failing to fulfill work or financial obligations. So I have covered here the spectrum of ways that a person's antisocial personality disorder may be expressed. I am talking with all of us in society who are dealing with different types of people and who may run across someone who has a lot of these traits, okay? We are affected when those traits are bothering us, when we are being taken advantage of, when we are being exploited, when we are being shown a smoke screen for some ulterior motive, and we're not being told the truth. I am now going to split antisocial personality disorder, or APD, into two types. So, to get a little bit more specific, I'm dealing now with sharing about sociopaths and psychopaths. Let's just consider them two camps within APD. What are the differences? Let me just give you a brief rundown on a sociopath's traits. Okay. First, sociopaths may make it clear that they don't care how others feel. They may behave in hot-headed or impulsive ways. They can be prone to fits of anger and rage. They recognize what they are doing when they are doing something wrong, but rationalize their behavior. They cannot maintain a regular work and family life. They can form emotional attachments, but it is difficult. A psychopath. I'm going to give you a little task. I'm going to bring up someone's name in history, Adolf Hitler. Knowing of Hitler and what he is known for historically, let's listen to these points under psychopath. First, a psychopath pretends to care. Second, a psychopath displays cold-hearted behavior. Third, a psychopath can fail to recognize other people's distress. Let's add just a corollary to that. Fail to recognize other people's distress that they may be themselves causing. Thank you. Fourth, a psychopath may have relationships that are shallow or fake. Next, a psychopath may maintain a normal life as a cover for criminal activity. Next to last, a psychopath may fail to form genuine emotional attachments. And the final point, a psychopath may love people in their own way. Yes, we could call Hitler a psychopath. Know that people with both sociopathy and psychopathy, so people who fit into either camp or both camps, will often go to extraordinary lengths to manipulate others, whether it be to charm, to disarm, or to frighten them in order to get what they want. When psychopaths do become violent, as in the case of Jeffrey Dahmer, they're just as likely to hurt themselves as others. Now, there are two other categories of narcissism. Let me just put one final note before I move on from this first category. These people may also engage in substance abuse. So, do you have to know someone like Hitler to know someone who is the overt type of narcissist? No. Now, the covert type, by the name I was used to in training, is now also known as the fragile or the vulnerable type. This type could be also depressed or anxious. These people have more issues with vulnerability, criticism, and they tend to waver more between high and low esteem of self. They don't necessarily present like the grandiose person. However, they may still have underlying traits of covered expectations of superiority or recognition and remain preoccupied mainly with their own sensitivity and perceived failures. The third type is the high-functioning or exhibitionist type. This type is less likely to have other psych illnesses, disorders going on. They also may not necessarily meet the functional impairment criterion for NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, except maybe during unexpected failures or crises. Now that I have gone over these different subtypes, how many people come to mind for you for the grandiose or overt, for the fragile, vulnerable, or covert? Lastly, for the high-functioning or exhibitionist type, we are going to go a little bit further in the next episode about when you are dating someone who is narcissistic. Note that in whatever category in your life, if you are dealing with a high-functioning type, it may be more difficult or complex process to ascertain that they are narcissistic. However, the more that you focus on the criterion or the possible ways that these people can express themselves, the more that you hear them as they relate stories of how other people experienced certain situations with them, you can begin to tease out a pattern or a trend in the way they tend to see themselves and the way they tend to see and treat others. So keep your eyes and ears open, and most of all, be sure that when you are with people who start making you wonder, maybe they're being a little different toward you or doing something unexpected in terms of a selfish or narcissistic way that you're not used to your other friends or loved ones treating you that way, be sure to get in touch with your divine and ask Archangel Michael or whomever you want to ask to help you to defend your personal boundaries, because it is very important for you to maintain your healthy energy. You are a spark of divine. You are entitled to fair, respectful, honest treatment in any facet of life, in any situation you encounter with anyone else. When people start making a pattern around you of breaking these rules, violating your rights, and stepping over your boundaries, this trend is raising all sorts of red flags so that you can begin to look more closely and then start to disengage. More about that in a future episode. Thank you so much for listening. I wish for you, oh, by the way, I want to say, Have you noticed I've been doing a crooked namaste recently? I had broken my arm and it is in the process of healing. So as I exercise, I wish for you to stay well, to be blessed, and most of all, to be true and authentic to you. Just be the most positive, radiant you possible. Namaste.